So to talk about that and what these hubs are actually contributing to the ecosystem, we've got 5 gentlemen who represent what we call the Zimbabwean Hub ecosystem. First on my immediate right is Munya Chigura, who's with Hypercube Hub. Then we have Pastor Tommy Dushel, who's with Emerging Ideas. We've got Shingi Jena from Muzinda Hub. Takunda Chingonzo, everyone knows Takunda, from Sky Hub in Pabulawayo. And Joseph Bunga, who doesn't need any introduction, from Area 46.
I don't know what doesn't need any introduction. If someone told me I'll be sitting next to the guy who interviewed Obama.
Eh? So the bar is pretty high.
Yeah.
So,
I'm intimidated just by that.
I'm going to jump straight into it because the judges are already ready to announce the winners. We need to find out what the hubs have been doing, what the hubs are, and what the focus has been. I'll start with Munya on my immediate right here. What is Hypercube all about?
Thanks for the introduction. I think what's interesting, before I even start about what Hypercube is about, is what I think you'll find today is that everybody plays a critical role within the ecosystem. We're talking about the tech ecosystem. So really, Hypercube is a co-working space. And you'll hear a lot more about us over the next coming couple of days. We've got a membership structure, so i.e., you as an entrepreneur can come into Hypercube. You are charged a membership fee to come and use the space. And we're really there to create an environment, a conducive environment for startups to flourish. Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a marketer, whether you're a developer, it's open to anybody who's looking for a space to come and work. So that's the critical aspect of what we are as Hypercube, co-working space.
And how is it different from what Emerging Ideas has been doing, Tommy?
How's it different?
Yeah, how is it different?
Well, these guys have a different sense of dress style. But I would say, one of the things which I think I would say to kind of back Munya up is it's cool because we're seeing all the different pieces of this puzzle come together in different expressions of hubs and points of view and expertise. So one of the things that we believe as Emerging Ideas is that Harare can become the city of collaborative brilliance, right? We have minerals and we have resources, but if we can collaborate our brilliance together, then we can absolutely change this nation. So we're doing things like pitch nights to bring everyone together, get them high on caffeine, and then start connecting in ways that I think are almost intangible. You can talk about the tangibles, which are, we get 3 out of 4 pitches every month, but the intangibles are the relationships, are the connections that are made. I'm not talking between girl and guy, like sexy relationships, although tech relationships are sexy sometimes. I would say the big piece of the puzzle that we're trying to bring is collaborative brilliance. And we do that through hosting pitch nights and then also giving away free content on our website. And then one of the things we like to do is to get on the ground in the trenches with a few companies, whether it's with investment or dev support or mentorship, and then we get on the ground, hands-on with some of these startups. And I say that's how we differ, but then there's so much complementary things that happen between all of us.
True. Now, one thing I've observed in the past year or so is that the same faces you see at Hypercube are the same faces you see going for hub support at Emerging Ideas. Some of the guys who pitched today actually have been through Emerging Ideas pitch night. And you also see the same faces at Muzinda. Shingi, that's your domain. What exactly is Muzinda trying to do? What is your core identity? I mean, he's talking about getting people to pay a new model. He's talking about pitch night. I know that the last Thursday of every month, I'm going to listen to guys like Ko talking about what they're doing. What is Muzinda trying to push through? And how is this different from what Sky Hub has been doing for the past couple of months in Bulawayo?
So I guess from our perspective as Muzinda, we've essentially refocused as a hub. It was very much a co-working space before, but now what we're doing is we're exploring technological initiatives that essentially empower young people to participate within the digital economy. So what am I talking about here? I'm talking about skills development, and essentially empowering young people with the digital skills they need to actually participate within the digital economy. So it could be anything. It could be app development. It could be web development. What we're saying is if an Econet Wireless wants to get a website designed, they shouldn't go to South Africa. They shouldn't go to the UK. We've got the skills here, right? And our goal is to effectively get people's skills up to that world-class level. So in short, that's pretty much what the way we're focusing.
You talked about skill. The gentleman on your right there, Mr. Chingonzo, he's been all over the world. He's coming from a hub that's...
Obama and Koi.
He's coming from a hub that churns out tech ideas every day. You guys have hackathons like every 48 hours or something like that. And, I mean, you've got global recognition already. But beyond the fun and games with the tech, there are a lot of decisions that hubs need to face. Someone has to pay the bills. The lights need to be kept on. And the funding question comes into play. How have you been tackling that? And how different is your approach different from what, say, Emerging Ideas is trying to do?
So, like you were saying, I'm essentially here wearing like two hats, so to speak. My colleague couldn't come here, Martin. So to start with, you were talking about NeoLab, right? NeoLab in itself, I think over the past 3 months, we've really zoned in onto what we want to be doing as a hub. We started off as like a normal company, but the problem was, you know, my team and myself, we were working on like 16, 17 different ideas at almost the same time. And we all know that that's not sustainable. You can't do that. So we developed a model where we work exclusively with university students. We recruit, we take them through our training, where we then group them, give them ideas, and then help them build or turn that idea into a startup. That's the reason why NeoLab is called the Startup Factory. Now, you spoke about the issue of funding. Because we're a very, very young team, like very young, you know, initially getting the funding was a challenge. So we came up with our own model. We had a group of people who were focused on creating very small projects that were lucrative, right? So these guys would generate like a whole lot of money, and then we would tap into that to fund whatever idea we're working on. The first startup that came out of it, you know, is SciSci Wireless. It's a lot of like R&D that's involved in doing that, and that's how we've been funding it. It's only recently, you know, given the conversations that we've had with partners in the US, that we're seeing funding now coming in to support our model, but that's how it was like. And then SkyHub, on the other hand, is focusing on one key element that hasn't really been addressed in Zimbabwe, in fact, I think in South Africa. That's the maker movement, shall I say. So SkyHub is focused on hardware-based startups. We're working with guys from, so there are a few other companies that are based in the US that are focused on that. We're trying to partner with guys, you know, with the whole Raspberry Pi Foundation and all of those other guys. So we're there to try and promote the development of hardware-centric startups. And I mean, we're in the best place to be. We're in Blaue that is heavily, you know, deindustrialized. So we have warehouses that are just sitting, and, you know, a lot of people who have skills that are not applying them. And so we're working with them. There is space that's going to be that's actually being set up to focus on that. We're trying to create, you know, Zimbabwe's first rapid prototyping lab. Because I'll tell you from experience, we're trying to develop this SciSci wireless router. You know, it was difficult trying to coordinate with guys in Kenya and then, you know, manufacturing in China, and, you know, it's just back and forth, and it's expensive. You don't have access to the components and things like that. That is what SkyHub is focusing on. And so the reason why we are jumping on both teams is we're trying now to augment the Blaue ecosystem. We believe it's a micro ecosystem within the Zimbabwean ecosystem. And so that's the whole point.
Yeah, before I move on to Joe, you are a Yali Fellowship alumni, right? Yeah. You're a Yali Fellow, that's what they call it. So you've tapped into the US Embassy in more ways than one. Does this mean that they're going to extend some sort of financing to any initiatives that you're involved in as SciSci or as Takunda and NeoLab? Or are you trying to run solo and figure out something else, something that is somewhat divorced and different from perhaps what Hypercube is doing?
Well, the US Embassy is a partner in the development of the ecosystem. That's a given fact. And as an embassy...
Doesn't that bother you?
I do not believe it should bother me, because we're trying to operate in a global economy, a global ecosystem. So you can't avoid that fact. Why would it bother me?
Well, I mean, whoever is, you know, paying the piper calls the tune. So if Obama, I mean, you talk to him. If he says, you know, Takunda, you know, we want to, you know, craft a certain foreign affairs agenda, and you are best placed to do it because you've now got control of Wi-Fi, and can we work on something and I'll give you $500,000 in the next 3 years? Won't that cloud your judgment? Because I mean, Sky Hub, I've been to NeoLab, Sky Hub, and I know what the situation is like. You guys are trying to put everything together. Won't that conflict what you guys are trying to do, and won't that affect the judgment? Won't you make decisions that are biased towards the person who's willing to sign that big check?
I see where your question is going.
Can I add on this? Because I think this is critical. When you look at technology ecosystems, and I'll give you an example. Everybody's familiar with MicroKing, right?
Yes.
Right, okay, Kingdom. Okay.
Kingdom.
Kingdom Bank, if you look at the genesis of the bank actually started with funding that came from DFIs, okay? And DFI basically is money that comes in from foreign funders. And I give you that example because when we look at our ecosystem, the reality of the situation here in Zimbabwe is that when you look at where you want to see us going in the next decade, it's critical for us to look at every single funding source. Now, the question one has to ask themselves when you do receive funding is, does that funding allow you to get to where you need to get to in the future? And for us as Hypercube, the U.S. Embassy is one of our funders. But at no time did the funder dictate to us how we should see the vision of Hypercube. So I think it's critical that I mentioned that because there are several conversations that continue to go around about does the funding that you get dictate the vision and how that money is used. At no point in time have we as an organization been requested to fund or put funds in any initiative that we didn't believe that's important. And so for us as Hypercube, we look at these examples as the beginning of a process, and ideally in any other situation you can have funding that's freely and readily available. You look at countries like Kenya where there are more opportunities that are being chased based on startups. So I think let's also keep in mind our current economic environment.
Sure, it makes a lot of sense. I totally agree with that. And I guess it ties in with what you were saying.
Yeah, the thing is, look, even the conversations that we're having as different hubs, we're trying to get investors into Zimbabwe. That's foreign money, right? Mm-hmm. All the funding, all of that has to come in and align with the frameworks that we're working with, firstly as institutions, as hubs, and then secondly as the country. So where the funding is coming from is, yeah, you could say that people would bring some other agenda, but I mean, it's like a startup that's trying to get investment. You get term sheets from investors, and you have the opportunity and the choice to say yes to this and no to that. We all know that there is no free money, right? But you have the ability to choose. And we simply make sure that all that we are working with, people that we're partnering with, are aligning with our vision and what we want to achieve for our ecosystem.
Cool. Let's talk about sustainability, and I'd want Joe to come in there. I mean, this is my own opinion, and I'm no hub expert. I think that hubs should be run like startups, and a startup is essentially a small business. You go in there, you figure out what the problem is, you figure out how to get money from the market or from whoever wants to back your idea. I guess something that Area 46 is trying to do, self-sustained. We figure out things as they go, but the question comes down to sustainability. How sustainable is a model where a hub tries to figure out things as it goes and tries to get other, members of the hub to pay for services, which is something that Area 46 does through and through, something that Hypercube is about to jump into. How sustainable do you think that is, Joe?
Okay, so I think it's not often that I can say I'm one of the youngest on the team. And today I can honestly say I am the youngest, but when I say Area 46 is the youngest of the initiatives here, and we've only just hit the three-month target. So from a sustainability point of view, you look at global stats for co-working spaces. Co-working spaces generally don't make any money. It's been proven world over that it doesn't work like that. So you have to have hybrid models. So when you talk about sustainability at Area 46, we've just gone past our 3 months. We're trying to look at ways to make it work. But I think the approach, which I believe each and every one of us is trying here, is the startup approach, where we're saying, we're trying to do this, does it work? We're constantly reevaluating. I've had conversations with almost everybody here, and I believe that we are operating very much like startups. And I think we take an incredible amount of hammering for trying to solve other people's problems. And you know, you look at today's initiative, and you look at the startups that we're pitching today, and you know, this opportunity was not the same 4 years ago. Things have changed so much, and it's because people like this are putting their heads on the block and saying, you know what, I'm going to dedicate some level of my personal time and try and make this happen. So from a sustainability point of view, I think there are many different models that work. I think we're all trying out different models, and that we should continue to do that.
Okay, everything is about money.
I was going to add, actually, I think, especially when you look at it from a sustainability model, I think, like anything, there's got to be an investment first. You know, so
But you're covered. I mean,
well,
we know who's bankrolling Muzinda, eh?
No, I know, but I'm just saying, I guess my point is, I think as tech hubs, I think we're all investing into the tech ecosystem. I mean, even when you look at it, I know, yes, we've got, you know, good backers, you know, no doubt about it, but I think also from our perspective...
They're backed by Econet, by the way, in one way or the other.
I was going to say, I mean, from our perspective, really, it's very simple. I think I mean, if you look, for example, like the digital scholarships that we're doing at the moment, I mean, there are scholarships, cost us $1,000 for every person that's going to go through that initiative. I mean, we could easily have said, you know what, we need to pay something towards it, you know, but we haven't done that. You know, for the simple reason being is we believe that when you've got a thriving ecosystem, you know, the returns will come back eventually, you know, whether it's in 3 years or 5 years' time, you know. So I think, I don't know, I think at the moment we're doing a lot as tech hubs, you know, and there's a lot that we can still do as tech hubs in Zimbabwe.
Are you willing to take equity in any startup ideas that come your way that have huge potential? Might be core, it might be Happy Maids, and you're thinking, guys, we'll take 15%, come work with us. Have you considered that? Is it something that you'd want to look at? This is addressed at everyone who's on the panel, I guess.
I'd like to take that because I think that's a really critical area for Area 46. Equity is something that we're very, very keen on looking at, and we believe that that is the model to go forward with. So it's equity for two reasons. One, from a sustainability point of view, startup exiting is the way forward. And two, that's one way to increase your interest, I think, in making that startup a success. But at the same time, let's not be too quick to assume that we're going to get an Airbnb exit happening in Zimbabwe next year. Yeah, I mean, you never know, true. But I am going to be confident and say, look, first of all, our marketplace is not big enough. And I think we have a long way to go to develop. You know, one of the questions that came up the other evening was, you're heading up a startup, or you're heading up a co-working space or a hub. How qualified are you to head up that co-working space? And the reality is, you know what, we're trying to do something that the best that we all can. And the same question can be asked of a startup, is how qualified are you to start a startup when it's your first startup? Hey, I'm doing the best I can. I think that's...
Yeah, let me add on that, because I think I agree with Joe. In an ideal world, we would love, as Hypercube, at some point in time to take equity stake in companies.
How soon is this going to happen?
Well, this is where I think
the startups want to know.
No, I hear you, but I think the key thing to keep in mind is it's all about pipeline. Okay, I've got a venture capital background, and when you talk to venture capitalists, they want to be able to see a pipeline. The thing we're trying to do in Zimbabwe is to build a pipeline. The way you build pipelines is through ZOL challenge competitions. Until we get to the point where we've got the volume and the scalability, then I can answer that question for you.
Okay, I'd want Tommy to take this. I've been to pitch night. I mean, you see a lot of illustrious or decorated business people sitting there and they're listening to ideas. Is the drive for angel investment from these guys who come and listen to these pitches once a month, or is this something that you're just hoping will happen, you know, naturally? An investor sits there, he picks up an idea, Sai is pitching, he comes over and says, I'll give you 100K, or it's something that you want to structure in the next year or so. should all these startups start flocking towards emerging ideas because they know that I'm likely to get an exit in the next 12 months?
I think when you do a startup, actually, let me just dispel a rumor here, because we actually don't really have funding, so when we do our pitch nights, we're literally like knocking on people's doors, like, hey man, can you give us some coffee, from your fridge, or coffee from your pantry and milk from your fridge, and then they'll be like yes, or they'll say no, and then we've got to go to somewhere else. So we are kind of treating it like a hustle game. Now there are sponsors now coming on board to say, hey, we want to do more, which is great. But the first, couple months, man, we don't know what was going on. So, but I will say that I think if you're looking into getting into, as your startup, if you're looking just for funding immediately, I think you're looking at the wrong thing. You got to look at the journey. You got to look at the problem you're trying to solve and the people that are around you. So when people come and they say, hey, am I going to get funding at pitch night so I can exit with 10 million US in the first year? I'm saying you're looking at it wrong. Look at what you can give first. Come to pitch night to say, what can you give to other people? Because I think if we create that culture, we're going to have a lot more success stories, a lot funner and more exciting relationships, and a lot better teams. So for me, the reason why pitch nights is because there is no strings attached. We've had people get funding on the spot from pitch night. We've had people find distribution deals. We've had direct sales happen because of pitch nights. But then the intangibles are people connect, they laugh, they start doing business together. That never would have happened unless you created the space that was free.
And that's worth more than the dollars and cents.
Well, I don't know. Let me ask you, are you married?
No.
Okay.
All the single
Bad
ladies.
example, right? So my wife has never given me any cash in my life, right? But she's the best thing that happened to me. So I think that happens with partnerships and relationships and strategic partnerships. Is these, this the best things that happen to you, and it's not necessarily cash.
And before you jump in, are you guys working together? This one small ecosystem, I can't say it's 14 months old because people have been excited about tech startups for more than 5 years now, in Zimbabwe at least. Are you guys working together? I know that Hypercube and Sky Hub have something going on.
Yeah, can I, in fact, I'll answer two questions. First is we actually all are part of a group called Catalyst. We all decided that it was the best thing for the ecosystem to get together. So each and every one of the hubs here is represented through Catalyst. And Catalyst is really was set up with the acknowledgement that in order to move our ecosystem forward, we always have to collaborate. And so that's actually, I would say in many ways, one of the very few initiatives in most of other African countries where all the hubs are actually working together.
Who's the party secretary?
Well, the Congress is in December.
Yeah, whilst you're at that, you guys came down to Bulawayo, right?
Yes.
When you're doing the whole evangelism kind of thing. And I'm sure you got pretty resounding feedback from people, right? You actually started a good number of conversations. And so what I said, initially, that's the reason why Nielab and Sky are working together. Because, you see, very few people have come down to Bulawayo. I'm happy Emerging Ideas is coming down with pitch night. And, people are now realizing that there's a lot more happening in Zimbabwe than not just in Harare, but everywhere else. And so it's that working together. We're all addressing one ecosystem. What's different is the value proposition, right? So we're now all working to make sure that that which we are offering to startups is, what they need, It wouldn't work if we decided to be competitors because we're not in any fact. We're doing different things towards the same goal.
So what can we expect from Catalyst? I know there's Startup Weekend coming up end of this month, and Catalyst is behind that. Is there anything else that the ecosystem can look forward to in terms of collaboration, in terms of pushing a really promising Zimbabwean startup beyond that line? We don't have a lot of success stories at the moment. They come in few and far between. Takunda, well done. So is Catalyst going to push the 5 good success stories that we have in Zimbabwe over that line every year? Or is it going to be a wait-and-see approach? Who's going to take it?
I think, let's talk about the ecosystem,
Yes.
And the different roles. And I used this example the other day. If you remember second Form 2 science, You know, the sand filter, how water gets filtered through. There's stones, then there's smaller stones, then, I think that's the kind of system that we're currently building. To say, all right, first someone goes and does a pitch. That needs to be, from that you can pick and say, hey, you know what, you don't need to go for skills training. So you know what, go here, get some skills training done, After some skills training, hey, now I think you're ready to do a pitch night, Start and go for a pitch, spend a weekend, whatever the case may be. I think with time you will see that process getting refined and each person's role becoming a lot clearer. One of the things I'd like to make from an observation point of view, you remember the time when we had huge number of banks and the banks had to start merging and start becoming one entity. That is something that I anticipate seeing in the startups. You're seeing a lot of the startups.
Muzinda ideas. Is that what we want now?
It's ideas, but I think you need skills, the skills to now start merging. So even if you might compete against someone at the startup challenge, but at the next pitch, I'd like to see two of those guys come together, pivot an idea, and go for it.
True.
I think there's a few examples, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that came from the startup weekend.
Yes.
From
what did
yeah. So that's a classic example. In fact, I was actually going to add, because when we did the road shows, because we went to NAST, to Blower, and a lot of what we did in terms of actually the success that it was also because of what these guys did also, because they also kind of helped us at the groundwork. And I remember Martin actually came and spoke, during our roadshow, and it was great because he was a great example. I always say you need to look for a compelling story. So you're talking about convincing people that you need a digital skill, right? And these were guys, they just come back, they just won the Sci challenge, sorry, what you call this, Demo Africa challenge. And it was such a great example, and you could tell it was suddenly believable for a lot of the guys that were sitting in the crowd. Suddenly they were looking at it and thinking, that could be me.
Yes.
So, I think the hubs definitely work together. There's no doubt about that. Okay. So yeah.
My last question is in two parts. You guys are working together, thankfully. But what do the hubs need? That's the first question. Number two is, how have you tried to engage the state? We try to avoid it, but the state is there. And if they threw in their support behind the tech ecosystem, a lot could change. Success stories in Rwanda, Israel, Kenya, the list goes on. Are you trying to engage the state as catalyst or individually? That's the second question. I guess Munya wants to take that first.
Yes. In the interest of time, I won't answer both questions, but I did want to address the one about the state. What's fascinating was that we had an event a couple of months ago where we engaged government. And if you look at ZimAsset, one of the core elements of ZimAsset in the context of ICT was setting up tech hubs. I don't know if anybody does know that government didn't know that the tech hubs existed. So that's an example where,
what else don't they
where
know?
through our engagement, they realized, we've actually, we're further ahead than we thought we were. So I think the key thing for us is, and that's why we thought that Catalyst was an important aspect of that, is that if we were working together, we can certainly be a good voice and advise our government on initiatives that are taking place that they were not aware of. So again, that will be an example, and you'll see more and more of our sort of voice in terms of guiding and advising government in ways where we can reflect what's happening in the tech ecosystem.
Okay, and Tommy, what does emerging ideas need? You've got Econet next to you, so make a wish.
It's actually a foundation.
Is it high life? We're talking with a few people on putting together, and I think even collaboratively you said, are we going to, engage and find more capital? And I think we're looking at kind of opening up those pipelines for capital a little bit. And so we do need more capital, because I think as much as I was the guy that said we don't need cash, right? You can have relationships. I think you do need a bit of capital, especially when people have gone through a process and they come out of these hubs and they are mentored by these kinds of people. They do need some sort of an injection, and I think that's what we're looking to help as well, and we're in conversations about that. So capital, and then just more collaboration, man. If I could ask the whole city to collaborate more and to I want more less pride in this nation. If we could all put our pride down, no one no one deserves to be proud in this nation. Like, no one deserves it. Even the guys driving a Porsche, if they're proud, they've lost their marbles, man. Doesn't even matter, because we have so much more to do as a nation, and we've got to look at that as opposed to what I feel like I've achieved already. So I'd like a little bit more humility, please.
Sure. Mr. Jenner?
I think, just to add on what Tommy said, I think collaboration is key. I think as an ecosystem, we all have a part to play, and we all have a role to play. And it's actually interesting because I was having a conversation yesterday with Nigel, and someone had actually gotten in touch from Kenya, about the fact that they were coming down to Zimbabwe and stuff. And I actually just called Nigel and said, we need to do something. And funnily enough, they had actually had the same conversation with the same individual. And I'd said, it shouldn't be it's Muzinda that's invited this person or Hypercube that's invited this person. I think that individual coming benefits the ecosystem without a doubt. So I think the collaboration is key for me without, so yeah.
Okay. Mr. Obama. That's the last time. I promise.
Thank you. So one of our key metrics at NeoLab is churning out a given number of startups per time period, right? One of the things that we really need, and we're glad to actually have now, is for these startups to have access to the other hubs, right? Because we're working with students, so they might go through our program, they effectively launch and deploy, but then they might be working out of Harare or Mutare, or and they need access to resources that other hubs are focusing on. And it's really all about that collaboration. We need to stop focusing on what we want and focus on what the ecosystem needs, not wants.
Joe, make a wish.
Yeah, so from a resource point of view, I think I need a platypus, hey? That's pangolin will do to substitute it. But, I think collaboration is important. What do we need? I think, look, Zimbabwe does need a success story. I think that's something that we're all searching for. I think we need each one of us to be more patient and give honest feedback. I think that's really, really critical. Don't keep the feedback to yourself. There's everything that we're doing. We're always looking for feedback because that's the thing that's going to make us grow, is to hear that, hey, you know what, this was great, but, can I make a recommendation? Let's try this. And I think you'll find most of the guys in the hubs are very, very open to, in fact, I don't think we're getting enough feedback. I think we need to hear what's going on. And then, of course, we need more of this type of event. I think the continued competition, the competition element. But if we got 103 entries, I think, when we're starting to see 400, 500 entries, that's when I think we're starting to make some form of impact. I think we do need to escalate people into, I want to give it a try. Don't wait to perfect your idea. Come out there, try. You'll definitely find someone else in that space. So from a resource point of view, let's people be more patient and have that not scared to fail attitude.
Those are very inspiring words from the man from India. So, guys, it's been a great discussion.
You didn't tell me to go back to India.
Thank you, Joseph, Takunda, Shingi.
Before you close it, Nigel, perhaps we can get a question or two from from the crowd. First lady of the day, Chipo. I'll come through, but let me get a question here.
I can cover your questions if you can't answer them, guys.
Thank you. I'm actually standing, but if you cannot see me, I'd just like the feedback. Joe, you mentioned feedback. I'd like to say, thank you to ZOL, TechZim, the hubs for what you've done, at least for the females. We know what efforts, strides that you've made for females. I'm here today. But we're recording this. I see males only. I see male judges only. I know there are other events where there are females, but I think that's something you need to make an effort. I know some of you have colleagues who are females. Were they not available today? I think it's important that you at least show
They
that.
actually weren't available.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good question. Let me talk about two things. Part of our team, we have Irene Chikombo, and unfortunately, Irene had to get on a plane and go to Johannesburg, so she's out of the country. But we do have 2 members of our board who are female, and so we're very, very well represented. Secondly, one of our core values within Hypercube is the promotion of women in tech. We work very, very closely with tech women, and interesting enough, yesterday, the tech women group had an event in Bare, and they had 300 girls show up. They actually had to close, the function because they didn't have any space. So we are doing as much as we can. In fact, we would like to do more, but it's all resource constraints. So yes, we acknowledge the fact that women do play a critical role within the ecosystem, and we do what we can to encourage that. So yes, we hope to see more and more women. But let me also preface and say that it is not unique to Zimbabwe. If you look at the United States, Europe, even Silicon Valley, you've heard Marissa Maria talk about the underrepresentation of women in tech. It is a worldwide phenomenon. So we're trying to do what we can. Thank you.
If I can just, and I know this is going to be totally controversial because it's not the well-polished statement, but, the obligation to promote gender equality is not only on the men. It's on the women too. And I think we are not going to stand there and say, hey, come on, let's go. We encourage. The comment that Tommy made about his wife. The reason I'm here today is because I have a very, very supportive wife. Yeah. So she supports me in what I'm doing, and I would support her 100% in whatever she does. But we need you guys to start standing up and saying, hey, you know what, we're going to take initiatives. There's no one in the, I can say without a doubt, there's nobody here who would prevent a woman from coming up here or encourage her from coming up here. So yes, we want to encourage it, but the onus, ladies, it's on you.
That's actually very true, because the current class, the MX class that we are taking for training right now, is the ladies only class. And from the first 2 weeks, we realized the reception that we got from them when it was a lady leading the discussion or whatever part of the module it was, they were more receptive to it. And so we definitely need more women championing this cause in as much as we are supporting it as entities.
I've got another question over here.
I'm Gashwang Mashita. The issue of collaboration is something that's really vital to the success of a lot of businesses, especially with startups as well. Don't you feel like there should be more done towards convincing people that when they come, they collaborate, the business ideas are safe, and that they can create certain circles of trust? I feel that's one of the areas that's hindering people from actually stepping up to say, listen, guys, this is what I have, this is what my business offers, and this is what we want to do.
Could I encourage all of us, if you haven't signed up for Startup Weekend, it's an incredible, incredible journey. And I preface that because we did a Startup Weekend several months ago, and everybody came up with the idea and they pitched, and again, almost similar to Pitch Night, we did have some successful, I think the top 10 who end up then going for the final challenge. But what was interesting was over a 54-hour period, someone says, this is my idea. After 54 hours, they're willing to share that idea. I think the key thing for us is we have to have more and more pitch nights, more and more startup weekends, more and more events that make people feel comfortable about sharing. An interesting discussion has been going on online about non-disclosure agreements. Should I sign on, should I not? But the reality is that if you don't share your idea and you don't feel comfortable, then we're going to be in a very difficult situation within our environment with people feeling comfortable sharing. So I agree with you. We just got to do more and more events so that people feel comfortable with sharing ideas. We're not going to move forward without doing that.
Yep. So. I think over and above that, when you're talking about the element of hubs and trust, I mean, you see, you're not going to find a particular authentic hub that's going to then steal your idea and give it to so-and-so and do this and that for one particular reason, right? Our customers or our users are startups. So the moment you have that tag or connotation, it all goes down the drain. So the confidence, it's a given when it comes to tech hubs. It's the core. That's what makes it work. And so people need to realize that as well.
I think similar to my comment about the ladies, this is another issue that startups need to deal with. If you think you're sitting on $1 million idea, that we're all just waiting for you to come and pitch it so that we can take it, guys, please go find somebody else. Hey, but you need to get comfortable with yourself first. Do your research. I mean, there's so many ideas out there. We want to work with people who believe that there's going to be value added from being present. If your concern is theft, yeah, go do your homework, do IP, do all those things, but come when you're ready to do the job.
Okay, I've got a question. I've noted the hands.
Thank you. My name is Ida Tutete. I'm an IP attorney. And my question is, I heard you talking about the tax situation. Do the hubs are they involved in the influencing of legislation? And to what extent have you made progress in those areas? I'm also thinking about the issue of collaboration. Are you collaborating with people in your industry or people outside the industry? Thank you.
Yeah, very good question. For us as Hypercube, we actually have a legal partner. And the legal partner actually came to us. They're quite a progressive law firm. And their belief is that IT technology is going to transform Zimbabwe. And I mention this because it's important that you find partners who believe in the same cause that you do. And this law firm has already made progress on IP and even on electronic signatures. You can imagine the nightmare of you want to sign a document and it all has to be physically signed. There's some work they're doing within the justice system to allow electronic signatures and documents to be accepted. So we do acknowledge the fact that in some cases, the legal framework may be behind technology. But I think the key thing is that we are working with a partner that will help us through that process. So yes, we are engaged with partners outside of just our own tech ecosystem.
I think maybe I could speak to the collaboration aspect. I don't think we've had that modeled for us very well with the previous generation. So we're kind of breaking new ground when it comes to collaboration, even though we had a collaborative government, right? They both did their own thing. So I think the aspect of collaboration is super important to be intentional about. And it's not about saying, oh man, I hate that dude and he's ugly and I just get annoyed when I'm around him, but I'm going to have to collaborate because those guys said it on the stage. It's about choosing specifically, we have, like Munya was saying, we have similar values, we have similar goals, we have similar dreams. I enjoy you, you enjoy me, let's collaborate and figure out a way to work together. And whether that's in the same industry of startups or whether it's a bank that supports us that somehow gets over the fact that, long lines and huge applications are, overrated. So I would say the aspect of collaboration has got to be intentional, and it doesn't have to be forced either, but it has to be intentional. Whether that's in our industry or outside of our industry. And I think we're all doing that. We're not just going to stay within our own four walls and go, hey, we're the tech and, we're the hubs. we don't want to start like a cult or anything.
I was going to add, actually, I think from a Muzinda perspective, obviously a lot of what we're doing is focused on the skills development, and essentially once we've skilled people up, the next step is actually connecting them to actual opportunities within the economy, etc. So we're actually working with existing enterprises, and we're actually asking them to avail opportunities to people, to the people that we train. And we had a group of 25 graduates, literally, that we trained. We're going to reveal it all at our launch next month. And they've now actually become micro franchisees for a new product that launched last month. So yeah, and for us that's key. The collaboration is key. So we're collaborating obviously with existing enterprises too. So yeah.
Before I go to our next question, nobody spoke about government. Is there any lobbying of government?
I think government's really busy at the moment.
Thank you very much. I want to congratulate you for all the things that you're doing in terms of trying to create a lot of noise. But you know, when you are in a small pond, you create a lot of noise, no one listens. What is important is we need to surface that noise so that everyone else knows what you're doing. I've been in IT business for 11 years. Nigel knows me, and what we need is a lot of you guys to come into the mainstream industry. As industry players, we are doing a lot to try to engage government. Unfortunately, you can say, we're not. But I want to tell you, we are sitting on a huge opportunity right now to engage government to listen to us. Because US dollar is giving us that power. They have to listen to us. But for that, we need to be organized. I feel that the ecosystem is not organized. So we need to really work closely as the ICT Suppliers Association. We are pushing a lot so that next year we've got a big Indaba, ICT Indaba, where there's a lot of thought leadership and a lot of where you compile everything, what's happening around our ecosystem. What are the opportunities, who's doing what are the good stories. And I want everyone to come and collaborate. But when we do that, we organize ourselves, government is bound to listen. Because one area that is lacking is thought leadership. Thought leadership means we go to our customers and say, guys, in the next 2 to 3 years, we are seeing cloud coming. Why? Because Econet has put fiber, and these are the opportunities for us as a nation. But that space is being taken by Malaysians and Chinese. And all we are doing is just talking in our small little hubs, talking. But the main business is being done and is being signed. And we are just looking at it and it's passing us. We need to be very, very serious. Because I'm telling you, this is our stage right now. But I'm encouraging you, all of you, to come and work with us on the ICT, State of ICT Indaba. I'm the Vice Chair for ICT Suppliers. I want us to organize ourselves, take ourselves seriously. We compete based on brains, not corruption, and good ethics, and good delivery, and pure knowledge. If we engage and make sure that we offer customers good quality service, well thought out solutions, they are bound to listen to us. Okay?
So which faction are you speaking to at the moment in government?
I think for me, government is us. We have the government that we deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, guys, we really have to wrap it up. There's going to be a lot of discussion after this. The startups are very jittery, I can tell. The announcement is coming. So from everyone who's here, Joe, Takunda, Shingi, Tommy, and Munya, thanks, guys.
Nigel, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.